A very good evening to you and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. How is Rome?
Well, Rome is fine. The weather is summer weather, and so it's enjoyable.
Earlier on this afternoon, walking across the piazza, St. Peter's Square, and the heat coming up from the cobblestones was quite dramatic.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. We have, of course, Archbishop Dabula Mpako and Archbishop Stephen Grislin. Let's talk about the visit, the Limina visit to Rome. You've been there for almost 6 days now. What have been the highlights? What have you learned? What are you bringing back home to our local church?
Well, for me, I think the most important thing was reconnecting with the heart, if you like, of the church in terms of administration and leadership, and to feel part of the universal church. So that was really a very important experience for me. Even before we talk about the different dicasteries that we visited, and also of course the highlight now, as you are aware, this afternoon was meeting the Holy Father, and we were very grateful that he was generous enough to give us that time. So it has been a positive experience, from
Archbishop Grislin, you've been sort of like the journalist throughout these days. You've had the opportunity of interacting with different bishops and talking about the different experiences. What would you say is the one that really stood out for you out of all the meetings that you've had?
Thanks very much, Sheila. I think when you say that I've been the sort of journalist during this, of course that's true because I'm the communications officer, but I've been greatly helped by Bishop Jose Ponce de Leon and Bishop Stan Juba. They've been absolutely wonderful. I was just thinking earlier on that the Ad Limina visit really is all about communion. It's about communion first and foremost with God, because it's a spiritual event for us bishops, and we come together, we pray together, and we try to express our communion with God. It's also about communion with the saints, particularly the apostles, because we are the successors of the apostles. And so it's very important for us to pray at the tombs of the apostles and to pray that we will be faithful to the foundation that they laid. It's about communion too, of course, with the Holy Father. And as Archbishop Dabula has just said, it was such a wonderful experience this afternoon, and to see his self-sacrificing coming to meet us and feeling that oneness with him, that unity with him. And finally, it's communion with the universal church, represented by the different dicasteries. And they were so wonderful in everything they said, of saying they are here to be of service to us. And anything we need as the local church of Southern Africa, they will try to fulfill. So I think it's really that it's been quite a spiritual experience of that communion, that oneness, that unity that we in our local church have with the universal church.
So speaking of that communion, that unity with universal church, I believe that there were various reports prepared before you headed to Rome. What were the main issues that you addressed with Pope Francis during the meeting?
Well, the reports obviously were the quinquennial reports that each bishop had to prepare, and also the president of the conference. However, when we met with the Holy Father, as he did in 2014, he doesn't really, base himself on such reports. He prefers instead to just interact with the bishops and allow us to ask whatever questions we feel we need to ask. So that's what happened again this afternoon. And I think what was important for me in what he shared with us, what he said about the synod and synodality, and also what he said, about the most important thing in being a bishop, the closeness, to God, closeness to other bishops, communion among bishops, closeness to your priests, and of course, closeness to the laity, the people that we serve. And he really, expanded on that, and you could see it as something very close to his heart. And it was very helpful for all of us to hear.
The dicastery certainly read our reports. Some were very detailed, and some had prepared agendas based on the reports that we had sent in, either as the quinquennial reports of each bishop or the reports of the different departments of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference. For example, the dicastery for divine worship which really deals with the liturgy of the church, had read Bishop Reese's report in great detail, and with each issue that he brought up in that report as a matter of discussion, they had on the agenda. So we discussed, for example, the whole issue of healing and the importance that healing has in our society, and how people are thirsting for healing, physical healing, emotional healing, psychological, spiritual healing, and how we have tried to prepare different prayers for different types of healing. And this was greatly encouraged by the Catholic, as they encouraged us too in other aspects. As you heard with Bishop Reese's interview, the fact that, when we celebrate the Mass, it's not something that is a division between the priest or the bishop and the people. It is an act of worship together. It's not the priest saying Mass for the people, but it is the priest with the people celebrating the Eucharist. So it was really a wonderful and encouraging discussion that we had. And that is true of each and every dicastery that we met. Very proactive, very welcoming, and really trying to look at the issues that we have. Very often, of course, we couldn't go into a lot of detail about them, but they did encourage us and gave us some very good pointers for the future.
Yeah, the other important thing was there's just been recently restructuring of the dicasteries here in Rome. So it was important to, to catch up with that process and to, find out, what it really means for the different dicasteries. So that was quite an informative experience as well. But it's clear that, it's still work underway. It's not yet as clear to them as well, how this restructuring is going to work. But it was well explained in terms of what is intended. So that was very important also for us to get a clearer understanding of that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this time with us, and giving us some feedback as to how the Limina visit went, and especially the meeting with Pope Francis, which many of us were praying that it would happen. And I must say the reaction from people on the ground is just amazing. People are so grateful to Pope Francis for making time, for making effort and meeting with our bishops. Your last remarks?
Well, for me, I'm really looking forward to the celebration of Mass tomorrow at St. Mary Major Church. I look forward to it particularly not because it's the closing Mass, but because it's such a beautiful church. But the important thing is that we're going to be joined by any South African who happens to be in Rome is welcome to come to that Mass. We have a number of pre-students in Rome, and hopefully they will all be able to join us. We have a couple of South African lecturers in Rome, and they too will join us. So it's really going to be a lovely celebration, not only of the Universal Church now, but a celebration of the South African Church here at the center of the Universal Church. So it's really going to be an absolutely great occasion.
Yes, it has been a wonderful experience, being here for these past 6 days or so. And as I said, a very renewing experience, reviving experience. But I'm also happy now that it's coming to an end. And I'm looking forward to return home renewed.
It's certainly been very hectic. A lot of things have been crashed into this week. So to be honest, we are quite tired. And so it will be good to get home. It's always good to get home, to be honest. But we will come back really refreshed, and hopefully that this will be able to pass on to the church in Southern Africa.
I thank you so much once again, and all of the best for tomorrow. And of course, we're looking forward to having you back home in South Africa and having all that excitement, having all that experience being shared with us, and walking together in communion with our bishops, with the church, as you said. So thank you so much for your time, and all of the best.
Thank you very much.